Welcome to Integration Astrology. Today we're going to have a look at Venus entering into the sign of Virgo this October 2020. Venus will enter into Virgo on the 2nd of October and then leaving on the 27th. And Venus represents our relationship with ourselves as the ruler of Taurus, but also, of course, our relationship with others as the ruler of Libra. And everybody will have Virgo at some point in their natal chart. And I want you to take a look and see which house is your Virgo house. And of course, it might be split over 2 houses or even 3. And in that case, you'll want to listen to the whole of all of those houses so that you can get an understanding of the journey that Venus will take through Virgo for you personally. What we'll be doing is also mixing in some tarot with this. So I'll draw 2 cards from 2 separate decks and we'll take a look at, first of all, what sort of relationship you're being called to have with yourself in a way that is Virgo or about Virgo issues, and also something about your relationship with others in the same way. So what are Virgo things to start thinking about? Virgo is all about the way that we see ourselves and the way that we discern things about ourselves and others. Also, it is about the way that we wish to serve others or the way in which we wish to be served. Obviously, there's the negative and positive aspects, and we'll focus a little bit more on the positive. And unless we can see something in the tarot that is telling us something that we should be mindful of, and a way to clear ourselves free of any of the negative energy. So we'll start now with looking at Virgo in house 1. If you have Virgo in your first house is everything to do with how you see yourself, your identity, who you are and who you want to be. And probably if you have Virgo placed here, you can tend to be quite self-critical of yourself. Of course, it means all sorts of things about your personality, but what we want to do is have a look at your relationship with yourself. So as Venus goes into Virgo, into your first house this October, it's asking you to look at something about your relationship with yourself. And if we keep that in mind, let's take a look at this first card. So what we have here is the star in reverse. In reverse like this, it indicates that you have lost some faith in yourself, lost some hope about who you are and where you're going and the plans perhaps you have for yourself. So keeping that in mind, then perhaps in terms of this Virgo energy and Venus coming into Virgo, you're being asked to go easier on yourself, to stop being so critical of what you've achieved or what you haven't achieved, to stop being analyzing yourself in such a hard way, because with this loss of hope and faith, you can't use that first house energy to propel yourself forward into the plans that you might have. And therefore, it's time to look at ways to ease off and take care of yourself and to give yourself a lot of self-love instead of being so self-critical. What about your relationship with others? So here we have the 7 of Pentacles. And the 7 of Pentacles means planting a seed, being willing to put the work in, being willing to start the effort. You won't have the result of your work straight away, but you'll be planting the seed. And so in Virgo, in terms of, obviously it's quite a sign associated with work. So planting seeds and putting effort in for sure is not something that is strange to you if Virgo is in your first house. It's asking you to find ways to plant seeds with other people, and especially, I suppose, in a significant relationship, to make a new beginning, to start a new project, to start a new way of being and relating with other people in a way that really represents for you a new beginning for yourself as well. Let's take a look now at having Virgo in the second house. So in the second house represents looking at the way that you resource yourself, so probably the way that you make money, and also the ways in which you feel safe and grounded. And so with Virgo here, probably you have a lot of systems in place for how you like to make money, how you like to be very organized. Probably a safe environment to you is an organized environment, and those sorts of things. And with Venus coming here to visit you in your second house, it wants you to reflect on some things to do with your relationship with yourself and also with others. So if we take a look first of all at your relationship with yourself, we see the Five of Cups. And as you can see from this, and also perhaps the Rider-Waite Tarot as well, the Five of Cups is where you don't realize all the opportunities you have, or you're not looking at the opportunities. You're just looking at what didn't work out and what you have lost. And so in terms of your relationship with yourself regarding things of the second house, like money or your feeling of safety and security, you're focusing too much on what you don't have, or focusing too much on what you are missing out on, or the things that are not working out, rather than looking at the opportunities that are right behind you, just out of sight. So I think Venus is asking you to look inside yourself, look at your thought patterns, look at the way that you limit yourself from having everything that you want financially, and in terms of feeling really safe, secure, and abundant, and start to look around. And then if we look at your relationship with other people, we have here the Three of Pentacles. So that's quite a good one for the money house, because it's saying to you that your relationship with other people surrounding things and issues to do with money and making money for yourself requires collaboration. You are not going to build on your own. It's saying that you will build by sharing and working with other people, having collaboration, and also sharing and comparing ideas. So in your relationships with other people, in particular in the ways perhaps that it has to do with money, or also in the ways that you're trying to create the perfect foundation for yourself, it's asking you to include others and to not do it alone. Let's take a look now at having Virgo in the third house. So the third house rules things to do with communication and learning and gathering facts, and also short travel, siblings and cousins, and your local neighborhood, and all those sorts of things. And Virgo ruling, or Virgo as part of your third house, will tell you that probably you like to be quite organized and structured in the way that you learn things, or the way that you like to communicate things. You might be a bullet point sort of person, or structuring logical arguments and things like that. And with Venus here, we're being asked to think about all of those together with regards to the way that we relate to ourselves and in our relationships with other people. So taking a look at our relationship with ourselves, we have the Seven of Pentacles, and I think the first house had this, but for with other people. So Seven of Pentacles is about planting a new seed and starting a new project, putting in the work for something that you want to manifest. You can see that she is sort of casting a spell over this plant, planting the seed of what this plant will become. So in terms of your relationship with yourself, surrounding third house issues, perhaps this indicates that now is the time to start learning something new that will benefit you personally, or to do a course of study that you've always wanted to do, and that will completely enrich or at least plant the seed of enriching your relationship that you have with yourself. If we take a look at what it means for your relationships with other people, we have the Two of Cups. So this could mean that you are about to have a new romantic relationship if Venus is traveling through your third house. So, I mean, that might be a good thing for some of you, and that this relationship that you have will be one of balanced communication, the third house is the house of also Gemini, the twins. So potentially a soulmate, potentially your other half. That's quite a strong symbol here, especially being in the third house, I think. If you're already in a relationship, it might mean that the way that you come to relate to your other half is through better communication. You might find that Venus in Virgo is helping you communicate with them in a more rigorous way, or in a way that is more clear, more concise, but not necessarily concise, perhaps very detailed, but brings something important to balancing your relationship and bringing you closer together. Let's take a look now at having Virgo in the fourth house. So the fourth house is about home and family, your emotional sense of security, and for sure your emotional inner world, things to do with the feminine in particular, nurturing and motherhood. Okay, so if we have Virgo in the fourth house, then probably we have experiences of perhaps being most critical of those in our family, or being quite critical of ourselves when it comes to our emotions. Perhaps we are more stoic in our display. Or it might have to do with just the way that you like your home to feel, and to feel very organized, and that gives you, an organized home gives you real emotional peace. But with Venus traveling through your fourth house, let's take a look at what sort of relationship we need to look at in regards to your relationship with yourself. Okay, so here we have the Hanged Man. And the Hanged Man is all about a new perspective, looking at things from a different point of view. So in terms of your relationship with yourself, to the extent that you are looking at your own emotional world and your own emotional health, perhaps that's the way we can put a spin on it for Virgo, you're looking at your emotional health, then you need to take a different point of view in terms of the way that you deal with your emotions, work with your emotions, acknowledge your emotions. Perhaps you are someone who pushes your emotions away rather than facing them and seeing what they're trying to tell you. Or it might be the opposite. You indulge too heavily, although probably with Virgo in your fourth house, it's not this option. It's probably the one where you look at them too coldly rather than embracing them for what they're trying to tell you. So it's time to take a different point of view in the way that you look at your emotions and the way that you serve your own emotional health. And if we take a look at our relationship or your relationship with other people, we have the Nine of Pentacles in reverse. So in reverse, it has to do with noticing something about a financial lack in terms of feeling stable. So perhaps there's something in your family life regarding some instability being created from within your family, or you're feeling that coming from your family, or whoever it is that are the people that are in your home, or you are just feeling that your home life is financially causing you to feel stable and insecure. And if that is the case, if you're feeling those sorts of things, you want to look at this relationship with your sense of home, or literally with the relationship you have with other people. And it might be your immediate family, and the ways in which you want to realize what the important things in life are. It might be saying that you've been putting too much emphasis on your relationships, these family relationships, or the relationships with the people in your home, putting pressure on them in a financial way, as if it's more of has been a business relationship. Whereas, of course, with our family, with our loved ones, with the people that we call our family and our home, the most important thing is the quality of our relationships, not turning them into a financial partnership or basing all of our financial decisions there. So perhaps it's time with these relationships to take a step back and to take them back to the important things in life, and to move them away from being the source of your sense of financial security, because that comes from other areas of life. We'll now move on to fifth house Virgo, and the fifth house is all about creativity and children and romance and art and fun and joy and all of those sorts of things, all very Leo things. So let's take a look at the ways in which we need to Virgo serve these things, or the way in which we need to be discerning or analytical about these issues, and surrounding our relationship with ourselves and with other people. So starting with yourself, you have here the Queen of Cups. And the Queen of Cups is very intuitive. So for sure, you're being asked to really use your intuition. It's also about really being very loving, but very loving towards yourself first. So it's also a card of self-love, which seems to be, I suppose, quite clear perhaps then for this combination, that your relationship with yourself needs to be full of self-love first. So and there's something around using your intuition. So perhaps it is you are looking at choosing something fun to do for yourself, or something that brings you joy, or something that is creative and just for you. And you need to make sure that your choice is aligned with your intuition, so that you tune into your intuition first regarding this. And also that whatever you do in this way is showing yourself some self-love. So if in fact you really have nothing in your life that brings you much joy, or you have nothing or no way of giving of yourself creatively or expressing yourself in a creative way, then this is saying it's time to show yourself some self-love and to serve yourself by lovingly giving yourself the opportunity for joy or creative self-expression. Then if we have a look at your relationship with others, we have the Page of Swords in reverse. So if we're thinking about relationships with others in the 5th house, we might be talking about romances, new romances. So not necessarily an established relationship, but some people you might be meeting, you might be dating. There might be people that you are meeting in creative fields, or something to do with your hobbies, or something to do with children, perhaps. There's a lot of things it could be about. But if we take it as being about romance, then what we are seeing here is that you need to use your Virgo discernment about these people that you might be going on dates with, because they are probably, with the Page of Swords in reverse, all talk with no action, or they say things that they don't really mean. They are trying to make you see them in a way that they aren't really. So there is a little bit of deception here, and particularly with words. So in terms of your relationships with other people in the realm of romance and in a Virgo way, you are for sure being called on to be very discerning about what people are saying to you right now. Taking a look now at Virgo in the 6th house. So the 6th house is also Virgo energy. And so it is to do with things like health and work and your everyday habits and routines and those sorts of things. So with Virgo there, for sure, I guess the way that your work life is and the way that you organize your routines, you probably almost have the same pattern of the way that you like to live your weekdays, your weekend days, and that sort of thing. Now, with Venus visiting here, what is she saying about your relationship with yourself, or what does she want to bring to your awareness? And she brings to your awareness the High Priestess. So for sure, Venus is saying that you need to be tuning in to your intuition regarding something about your relationship with yourself, perhaps to do with your health, or perhaps something to do with what you're feeling or wanting about your work life, or around these sorts of issues. So it's time to, instead of doing, I suppose, the very traditional Virgo and even more so Virgo 6th house thing of analyzing things very rationally and writing lists of pros and cons when you're trying to make a decision, it's to find what you really need to know about your something about your relationship with yourself right now, or something important to do with yourself. You need to find a way to tap into your intuition. So whether this is to sort of be in a meditative state, which you might do if you go for a walk, or to get out the tarot cards if that was something that's interesting to you, or doing some sort of different ritual that can help, and probably you enjoy rituals, so a different ritual that can help you get in touch with your intuition, and to experiment with that through October and see how that makes you connect with yourself, and something that Venus wants to tell you. Then if we think about your relationship with other people, we have the Fool in reverse. So the Fool in reverse can mean that you're being too reckless. And so perhaps you are being too reckless at work or with your colleagues, and perhaps not discerning enough. They might be being reckless with you and you with them in return. Or there's something here that if you need to watch out for in terms of this way that you are relating with people at work. You need to harness the power of your discernment to analyze the situation, to be more Virgo, be more analytical, be watching out for sorting out what's true and what's not, and the way perhaps things are changing at work or with some of your colleagues. With the 7th house Virgo, we're looking at 7th house issues, which is mainly to do with your significant and intimate relationships and to do with the balance that exists there, or trying to always maintain balanced relationships of being listened to and listening and all of those sorts of things. And so with Virgo here, you're being called to be quite discerning in your relationships. Perhaps you're quite logical and even a little bit perhaps mental and a lot of thinking in your relationships. But also there's probably some elements of being quite critical of yourself, reflecting on yourself, but also reflecting on always what's happening and perhaps a little bit looking sometimes at who is at fault and things like that. Now, if Venus enters your 7th house by first traveling over your descendant, then potentially this could mean the start of a new relationship. Often when Venus travels over the angles, your ascendant, your IC, your descendant, your MC, it can sometimes indicate, especially over the descendant, a new relationship or perhaps a new beginning in a relationship. But first we'll have a look at your relationship with yourself, and we see here the Two of Swords in reverse, which indicates that you are making a decision of some kind, and a decision that you feel has two possible outcomes, neither of which you're particularly interested in, or you don't really feel like there's a winning situation here. So with if we're talking about your relationship with yourself, but also in the house of the relationship with other people, perhaps you are trying to make a decision about your relationship, staying or leaving, and both of those have a lot of cons. And so I think you're being called, this card asks you when in the reverse position to just make that decision, to move yourself forward. So with the Virgo energy, you will make a decision for yourself about your relationship. That is the best possible analysis that you can make. And then after you have made the decision, commit to that decision for now. And then you want to look at what will happen after that. So you're being asked to just really make that decision. You've probably done the analysis already, or you have been doing it. And even if you can't make a decision, you need to for yourself so that you can move yourself forward. In terms of your relationships with other people, you have the King of Swords in reverse. And probably the way that you are relating to other people, or the way that they are relating to you, but usually it's more the way you are relating. There might be a strong use of words, or words used to manipulate or try to get your own way. Or you're using words in a way as to be more of a battle than to be of service. And this is something to be mindful of during this time. Venus is asking you to be aware of this in the way that you relate to your partner, and to really see in what way does it really serve. Virgo is about service, so in what way does it really serve your relationship? And is that something that you potentially need to change? Now we take a look at the 8th house, and the 8th house is about things to do with deepest transformation. It's the house of sex and death, and as they say, taxes and inheritance and all these things, the things that change your life. And things that change your life can be challenging, but also necessary to go through for this sort of transformation. So with when we're looking at Virgo here, we are talking about deeply merging and transforming something to do with the way that you serve others, the way that you are helpful, the way that you are discerning as well, because this is also the house of power and trust and powerlessness and betrayal and those sorts of things. So let's see what Venus wants to tell us about our relationships with ourselves and also with others. So in terms of our relationship with ourselves, we see the 6 of Pentacles. And the 6 of Pentacles is about a harmonious balance of giving and receiving of money. So not necessarily money, it could be of service, some sort of service. So it's interesting in the house of things to do with other people's money and inheritance and things like that. This is saying that perhaps in terms of your relationship with yourself, it is time to be giving yourself more. Perhaps being someone who is of service, tapping into being of service, or if it is that you're in a position where actually you're in need right now, being able to accept that help, being able to accept what is coming to you without the usual Virgo guilt about doing so. So perhaps you have an opportunity to be taken care of financially, and you need to accept that, even though that is difficult for you to do. So it could be around any of those sorts of issues. Now, if we have a look at your relationship with other people, we see the World. So the World indicates a completion, where everything in terms of some sort of a project or achievement or some phase of life has reached its completion. So something is reaching its completion during this month of October in terms of your relationships with other people. And so perhaps it is a relationship that has transformed you and has reached its natural conclusion. Perhaps it is a relationship that has taught you a lot about your inner psyche. Perhaps that is the conclusion, but the conclusion does not mean necessarily an end. It can mean, as the completion occurs, it can mean something that looks like a graduation. So it can look like, perhaps, for example, in a very intimate relationship, and the 8th house is also about this, it could mean a marriage takes place for you or your relationship with your significant other. It could move to this phase. It also does speak about, in terms of this sort of completion, that you within yourself come to a form of completion. And so in your relationship with others, there is again a second message here of wanting to in some way contribute and serve. So it does seem to be about that particular Virgo issue in both cards, something about serving, something about giving to other people, giving of yourself, and that is what this time of deep merging and bonding with other people, what it will look like for yourself, what you will be doing yourself and giving to yourself, as well as what you will be doing in relationship with others, is you will be joining with them in a way that gives them something and therefore also gives yourself something. Looking at the 9th house now, and the 9th house is things to do with knowledge and beliefs and cultures and long distance travel and truth and all of those sorts of things. So it's the energy of Sagittarius. And when we're looking at that in terms of, or through a Virgo lens, I suppose we can say that probably, usually, you're quite discerning about what the truth is. But also you can be quite analytical about beliefs and belief systems and those sorts of things. So let's see what any of this means for your relationships with yourself and with other people. So with your relationship with yourself during October, we have the 9 of Pentacles in reverse. So it seems to indicate that something about the way that you are living your life is causing you to feel unstable, or you have a sense or a perception of instability. Perhaps it's coming from money, perhaps it's coming from this sense of instability, might be asking you to look at your relationship with your beliefs around money, or something, whatever it is in your life that is causing you to feel unstable and like that all your work and all your efforts haven't quite yielded the results you were looking for. And you're feeling kind of exhausted by it. It's asking you to take a look at the extent to which it's true, or it's your beliefs about the situation. And so this is the inner work that you need to be doing with yourself right now. In terms of your relationship with other people, we have the 10 of Pentacles and upright. So the 10 of Pentacles is, I suppose, quite the opposite of the 9 of Pentacles in reverse. I mean, this is all the effort that you've been putting into life. And so I suppose all the effort that you've been putting into your relationship with other people is coming to full fruition. You are really receiving a lot of abundance and in your relationship with other people. Or you can see those relationships as being very abundant. And so in terms of 9th house issues or 9th house topics, perhaps it is your relationship with other people in some sort of cultural group, or in some sort of relationship with peoples of other cultures, or something around those sorts of things is really telling you that this is all going the right way, that this is really coming into bloom, it's coming into fruition, you're experiencing abundance because of it. So perhaps the abundance of your relationships with other people will come from working with people of other cultures, or being involved with people of other cultures. So yeah, it's an interesting set of 2 cards. Taking a look at the 10th house, and the 10th house is traditionally the house of career. It's the house of society and of sort of structures and foundations and rules and regulations and those sorts of things, but most people think of it as being about their career. And with Virgo here, perhaps you have a career that is quite analytical, or requires you to really sift and sort through facts and figures and things like that. Or a career that is something to do with health and service and those sorts of things. So, but let's look at it in terms of Venus and relationship with yourself, first of all. And we have here the Magician. So the Magician is all about creating your own reality, manifesting the life that you want through your own volition, well, basically just by making it come into being as if by magic. So in terms of your relationship with yourself, perhaps in the area of career, it's time to get into a mindset that whatever you want from your career, whatever contribution you want to make to the world, whatever way you want to be of service to the world, because that's very 10th house Virgo, you can have it. But you need to have that belief. You need to believe in your own abundance. You need to believe that you create your own abundance. You need to believe that you will be the one who creates all that, and you will not be waiting for society to change. You will not be waiting for someone to hand this to you, or for someone in authority to agree it's what you deserve. This is saying to forge a relationship with yourself that centers around knowing that it is you who will create the career that you really want. In terms of your relationship with others, we have the 8 of Cups in reverse. So the 8 of Cups upright is about being ready to leave certain things behind and go on a new journey. But when it's in reverse, it's saying that there is something holding you back. You have a fear. It's usually something emotional, because we're talking cups, we're talking emotions. There are some emotions, some fears that are holding you back from having what you truly want. So in terms of your relationship with others in the house of career, who are the people that are holding you back, or what is holding you back from having the sorts of relationships or career with other people that you truly want? So either there are people currently in your place of work who are holding you back from having the career that you want, or it is some sort of fears of your own, some sort of emotional trappings from your past that are stopping you from really hunting out the career that you want and having and being involved in a career with
certain types of people and certain types of goals and certain type of work environment that you truly want, because something is telling you that you can't have it or it's too hard to have. And this is probably a lot of your Virgo self-criticism and Virgo guilt surrounding these issues as well. And this is something to be aware of, to see that what is holding you back is a fear. It is unlikely to be actually something holding you back. It's something inside of you that is doing that. Let's take a look at the 11th house, and that is the house of friendships and associations with groups and communities, those sorts of things. And so with Virgo, perhaps your interests or in terms of the friendships that you make, you're probably quite discerning about the sorts of friends that you allow into your circle, or in terms of groups and involvements and things you like to be a part of. You really like them to be associations that are founded on a lot of sort of factual sort of things. So they might be some sort of scientific involvements or some sort of charities that can work towards bettering health scenarios and things like that. So if we have a look at your relationship with yourself, we have here the Five of Wands in reverse. And the Five of Wands in reverse means avoiding conflict, which sounds like a good thing. So especially when we think about your relationship with yourself, but in regards to your friendships, then it is saying that perhaps it is telling you to watch yourself for being too confrontational or for creating conflict. So it might be us telling you to be mindful of the way in which you do, perhaps especially with the way you can be sort of cutting with the Virgo energy, perhaps with your friends, to be aware of the way that perhaps you are creating conflict. Similarly, it could be asking you to be aware of the way that you are avoiding conflict, when really you need to be learning to be more assertive and create some boundaries. And that perhaps in your Virgo way, you are taking in and claiming it as your own guilt, or that it is your own problem, and that you take it on board and you become the martyr in your friendship groups, thus avoiding conflict, but of course hurting yourself greatly. So one of those two will probably be true for you. Depends which way it's important to you right now. Then with regards to relationships with other people, we have the Lovers in reverse. So there is something about your relationships with your friends, or those through which you are in group associations, that is unbalanced right now. And that this is something to be mindful of during October. Using your Virgo discernment and analysis is probably time to look at which friendships are imbalanced, and can you restore that balance, or what actually needs to happen in this situation. It's not necessarily a time to take action, it's a time to have a look at these relationships and start to make some decisions. But it seems clear that your relationship with your friends and perhaps other acquaintances or within certain groups is experiencing a lack of balance. And now for the 12th house. So the 12th house, in its more positive vein, is about your spirituality and how you feel really connected to the universe, and connected to meaningfulness and those sorts of things. And in some of the negative and challenging ways, it can be the ways in which you feel very isolated and very fearful, perhaps, and very disconnected and perhaps confused and foggy about things in your life. But we'll look at it in terms of your relationship with yourself and others. And perhaps it will have something to do regarding your spirituality. Let's take a look at your relationship with yourself. So here we have the Knight of Wands. The Knight of Wands is a very energetic and creative and ambitious and excited new beginning, really wanting to move ahead with ideas and these sorts of things. So in terms of a relationship with yourself, it does feel like it's time for a new adventure with yourself, perhaps on the spiritual plane. So it's time to start on something new and exciting to sort of wake you up spiritually. So what that could be, I guess, are endless possibilities, but it seems like it's time for you to forge your own path regarding your own individual relationship with the spirituality. And with that Virgo energy, you'll be able to sift and sort and try and see what might be the fit for you. But it seems like that's what Venus is trying to say. It's time for a new relationship, a new adventure with your own spiritual self. In terms of with other people, we have the Emperor in reverse. So if we're thinking about your relationship with other people, particularly as it pertains to perhaps something religious or spiritual, or even the way that you feel closed in, because the 12th house can be about feeling imprisoned in a negative way. And the reason we're talking about that is because the Emperor in reverse talks to feeling quite controlled and being controlled, or perhaps it's you who is being controlling. So of course it could be either way. So this is relationships with other people. Maybe it is coming from them, maybe it's coming from you, but it is sort of the last ditch effort to try and enforce rules and regulations and traditions on people in a frantic way, and power is being lost. And this is the energy of your relationships with other people. So perhaps these two actually go together in that something is falling away, something spiritually. So perhaps you've always felt yourself quite committed to your spiritual beliefs. But as you watch, things are, the pace at which things are ramping up in terms of those things falling away and you seeing the truth of them might be occurring now, which is why it's time for you to forge your own spiritual path and go on a new adventure. Could be something like that. So very interesting. I'd love to hear how any of this resonated with you, or what actually comes up for you in October. And yeah, we'll be looking at another video soon with another astrological transit and what it means as it passes through your particular part of your natal chart.